We flinch at the very thing that we've been begging for. But this is the part also that no one, I don't think, is talking about too much. And not because it's not real, but more so because it's kind of confusing to admit. See, we spent years longing for someone to finally see us, to finally choose us, and in choosing us to stay. And when they did, when love finally looked us in the face without flinching, we found that we couldn't breathe. And it wasn't from joy as much as it was from fear. See, they touched our hand and we pulled away. They looked us in the eye, for example, and we turned our heads. And they told us, you're safe now. But something inside of us just whispered, no, we're not. I mean, it's hard to explain to someone who's never felt this. How can love feel more dangerous than neglect does? How can kindness feel more suspicious? How our body can go rigid in the middle of a hug that was really meant to soothe us. And it's not because we didn't want love. It's more so because somewhere along the way, love started to feel more like a setup. And we didn't talk enough about this pattern, right? How those of us with vulnerable hearts and invisible bruises often collapse under the weight of exactly what it is that we'd been asking for. And we said that we wanted closeness, but when it came, it felt like an invasion. And we said we wanted honesty, but when someone told us how they really felt, it kind of made our skin crawl. And we said that we wanted to be chosen, but when someone did choose us, we secretly questioned their judgment. And perhaps the most heartbreaking element or part of this dynamic is that we told ourselves this must mean that something is wrong with us, that we're too damaged, that we're too suspicious and complicated and cannot be loved well. But that's not the truth. Here's what is actually happening, I believe. See, when we grow up in chaos, or when we survive heartbreaks that cracked us open without really tending to the healing part, our bodies get wired for defensiveness instead of reception. It doesn't matter how many words of affirmation we read, for example, but because if our nervous system believes that love equals danger, then even the safest touch will feel like a trap. See, we don't unlearn survival in theory. We actually unlearn it in practice, in slow, awkward, painful, vulnerable ways. And that's what this episode is about today. See, here at Uber Bintegers, this is the heart of my work. It's helping people reconnect to themselves and to others around them through lives that are rooted in integrity and in intimacy. And for me, integrity is not perfection. It's more about alignment. I like that word, alignment. When what you feel on the inside, what you need, and how you act begins to harmonize instead of contradict. And intimacy is not about these grand declarations or perfect timing. It's more about intimacy, being real and raw and present, even when it's terrifying. Especially when it's terrifying. See, I'm not here to perform wholeness. I'm here to practice it and to encourage and inspire others to join me. And that really means naming the parts of me that want love, but don't know how to stay when love arrives. So let's name some of these now, shall we? Let's name the part that panics when someone offers help. That quietly prefers to just not be only the giver, but not to be the receiver. Because accepting help never really felt safe. So let me name the part that also hears, I love you, and immediately scans for the exit, that waits for the other shoe to drop, that tries to beat the rejection by pulling away first. Let's maybe name the part that gets angry at gentle affection, the part that resents softness that it really craves, the part that feels exposed when someone looks at you like you actually matter. I don't think these are contradictions. These are the natural outcome of a nervous system that's learned to survive and not to trust. And when those protective patterns stay unspoken for a length of time, we turn the blame inward. And we tell ourselves, why do I ruin everything good? Or I'm broken in ways that no one can actually see. Or I always push people away, even when I don't mean to. The truth, however, is you're not broken. You're just reacting to what your body has learned to expect. You've just never had love that didn't require vigilance. And even when love is finally safe, well, your system can't always tell the difference, and can it? So the next time your hands tremble when someone says they care, or the next time you feel yourself dissociating in a moment that's supposed to feel warm, the next time, for example, where you shut down instead of leaning in, I want you to remember this. You're not rejecting love. I think what you're really rejecting is danger. Your body just hasn't updated that definition of danger yet. And that's not weakness. That's the wisdom of someone who has survived. But now you're allowed to want more than just surviving. And wanting more means learning a new way to feel safe in what's good. There's a moment that happens in so many relationships, romantic ones, close friendships, even moments with family. But this moment is when someone shows up for us. Like they really show up. And they say the right things, right? Or they say not only kind things, but they do kind things. Or maybe they just sit there without flinching when we fall apart. And it's in those exact moments, instead of feeling relief, we actually feel more exposed. We feel unsettled and vulnerable in a way that makes it just feels too awkward to hold. And sometimes when we might brush it off, or we might get sarcastic or dismissive. Sometimes we overfunction by making jokes or trying to change the subject. But what we don't do is we don't rest. We don't rest because rest requires safety. And safety requires trust. And trust, especially in love, it's betrayed us before, hasn't it? So instead, we retreat into performance. We mask our fear with control, and we turn our tenderness into a strategy. And we overthink every gesture of kindness, trying to analyze if it is something digestible. Or worse, we just sabotage it before it ever has a chance to grow roots. This is not because we're cruel. More so, we're just terrified of what happens if we believe in something good and then lose it. So we stay in the familiar zone, even if it's lonely or cold, or even if it leaves us starved for the very intimacy that we're craving. At least it's predictable. At least we know how to brace for the hits that we see coming. But here's something we rarely say out loud. See, when you've spent your life bracing for pain, even love can feel like an ambush. We don't teach people today how to receive what they've never known, right? We teach them how to earn it how to work for it, how to prove that they're worthy of it. But what happens when love doesn't ask you to prove anything? What happens when someone simply just offers their presence and not any performance? This is a terrifying moment, isn't it? Because this confronts the part of you that only ever felt valuable when you were doing something. And when you're met with love that wants your truth more than your efforts, you freeze. Not because you're ungrateful, but because it's disorienting. We're used to the kind of love that has fine print, right? Love that's conditional, love that depends on being pleasing or productive or just being easier to handle. So love that just stays, love that just says you're enough without any receipts, without any warning, without a secret resentment waiting behind the smile. Oh, that just feels foreign for us. It feels suspicious and unsafe. See, we often hear people say, oh, you need to learn to love yourself before someone else can love you. Have you heard that? The thing is, that's not always true, though. Sometimes the first moment of healing really happens when someone else's love gets to you before your self-hatred does. Sometimes it's not that you don't love yourself. It's just that no one ever modeled what it looked like to receive love without any strings attached. So of course, your system does not know what to do when that happens. Take a breath here though with me, would you? I just want to pause before this becomes just another self-analysis. See, this episode is not about naming the dysfunction and the leaving of you in that zone. It's more about offering you what a bridge could look like a competent bridge. One that you can actually walk across slowly and trepidatiously with no need to rush. So if you're someone who's flinched in those moments of softness and vulnerability, who's dissociated during affection, or who's gone numb during intimacy, or who's smiled while secretly feeling unsafe, I want to extend this invitation to you. You don't need to explain it away. You don't need to listen to what it's trying to tell you. See, that part is not broken. It's actually quite brilliant. It's been protecting you this whole time. Sometimes too much, I'd say, but always there's a reason, right? But now, and maybe for the first time, you get to ask it a different question. Not what's wrong with me, but what did I learn about love that made me scared of it? Sometimes we don't notice that the beliefs that we built our emotional world around, not because they're subtle, but because they're so loud that they feel like facts. See, love has always come with strings. That's the belief, right? That's the structure that we return to when something unfamiliar appears. So when love does not demand anything, when love is offered freely, it doesn't feel like peace when it lands, right? Instead, it feels more like suspicion. We assume that we missed something. We missed a rule or a clause or a condition. Maybe we're going to get scolded later for this. And so we wait for the catch. And when the catch doesn't come, well, we create one just to feel like we're back on familiar, steady ground. This is the secret cost of early betrayal or neglect. Not just the pain that it caused, but the template that it has imprinted into our soul. So we stop trusting what's good, and we stop letting our guard down, and we assume the worst is always just around the corner. It's not really a conscious decision though when we do this. It's more a survival code, right? A nervous system that's built to scan every danger, even in the moments of calm, especially in those moments of calm. Because calm is when things really fall apart like they did last time. I mean, think about that. See, so many of us are still flinching at ghosts. We're still bracing for the impact. We're still treating love like it's a free fall. And yet we keep longing for it. We keep longing to be seen, to be known, to be safe in someone's arms without having to rehearse how we're going to leave. This tension, though, between longing and fear is really where we get stuck. We overthink, we overperform, we run towards love with outstretched arms, but one foot still hovering over near the door for our getaway. So how do we actually shift though? Well, like I say, we don't shift with shame or pressure or by trying to fix ourselves. We shift by gently updating the script that we've been following or reading. We begin to speak to the parts of us that learned that love was dangerous, not with blame, but with curiosity. We ask things like, what happened that taught me that love would hurt? Not in an effort so that we can stay in that trapped zone of our past, but more so we can actually give the present a fighting chance. So you may find that your distrust of love is not just about past relationships. It's about what love meant to your younger self once. Maybe the love was loud and conditional and punishing and unpredictable, or just maybe even completely absent. And so now even those small gestures, like a hand on your back or a text that says, I'm just thinking of you, or a compliment spoken softly, feel like someone's trying to sneak past your defenses. But what if those defenses could soften? Not through force, but through trust that's earned slowly. What if love did not have to be perfect? It just had to be consistent enough to rewire the reflex. See, that doesn't mean that we won't still flinch, right? Or get flooded or want to bolt sometimes. But it does mean that we no longer are going to shame ourselves for those reactions. See, now we recognize them for what they really are. And that's proof that something in us still wants to be safe. And that something is worth honoring, not overriding. The shift really begins when we let ourselves stay. When we let ourselves stay in the moment after the hug, or stay in the eye contact that we're practicing maintaining, or stay in the silence without filling it with apologies, or stay even when everything in our body is just screaming, get out of here, run. That's the new muscle. That's the courage that we're trying to practice. Not bravado, not stoicism, not machoism, but presence. Like soft, trembling, real, authentic presence. It's okay that love may feel complicated. It's okay that love doesn't feel automatic. But what's not okay, what's no longer needed is abandoning ourselves in the name of protection. See, we can keep the wisdom that kept us safe without carrying the armor into every moment of warmth. And we can begin to believe, like in a gentle and slow progressional way, that we're not foolish for wanting to be loved, and that we're not being disloyal to our pain when we choose to try trust again. See, love should not feel like a trap. But when our nervous system has learned otherwise, freedom can feel like danger. and danger can feel like home. So we try to make the new love look like the old one, just so that our fear can breathe. And we provoke conflict when things get too quiet. We withhold our joy when it feels too vulnerable to express. And we create emotional distance when connection gets too close to the raw parts that we're hiding. This is not because we want to lose love as much as because we don't know how to be held by love without the suspicion. See, there's no shame in this though, is there? There's only truth. And truth is where healing begins. It begins in the moment that we stop pretending. When we stop performing like security that we don't actually feel. When we stop saying, oh, I'm fine, I'm good, while our insides are begging to be understood. See, the healing begins when we name what's actually happening inside of us. Not to demand rescue, but to stop abandoning our own experience. We don't have to banish fear to find love. We just have to stop letting fear run the show. Fear can sit in the room, right? And it can ask its questions. It can signal where the exits are. But fear no longer gets to make all the decisions in your life anymore. Not when your heart is hungry for something that's bigger, something that is truer. And here's what I want you to remember, if anything else. Real love does not ask you to be fearless. Real love asks you to be honest amidst your fear, while you're in the midst of it. And maybe for once, maybe that's just enough. Maybe the real revolution is to stand in the warmth of someone's kindness or affection and not to shrink. To hear something like, you matter to me, and not to argue with that in your head. To let your body soften in that moment where it doesn't have to be proof or permission that you need to exist. See, this is not easy work though, but it is precious work. It's sacred. It's the kind of transformation that doesn't just change how we love, but it really changes how we live as well. Because when we finally start believing that love is not a trick, it's then that we begin showing up differently everywhere. And it's then that we speak more gently. It's then that we breathe more deeply. We stop needing to win every argument just so that we can prove that we're allowed to be here. And we stop picking fights to test if someone will leave. We stop interpreting like kindness as manipulation. And instead, we begin to trust joy without rehearsing for loss. This is how we build a new internal reality. And it's not an overnight process or all at once. No, nothing like that. But it's a moment by moment, choice by choice, connection by connection kind of a thing. Progressional. We begin to understand that the very thing that we flinch from, like the tenderness, the vulnerability, the care, the presence, might just be the medicine that we were missing this whole time. And we stop being ashamed for needing it. So if you've ever found yourself pulling away from something that is beautiful, or if you've ever frozen in the presence of kindness, or if you've sat next to someone who genuinely loves you, but felt like you were a stranger to yourself, I want you to know this. You're not damaged to receive love. You're just out of practice. And that's legit, that's okay. See, here at Uber Bintegers, I believe that integrity and intimacy aren't just personal ideals, they're collective, they're collective lifelines. Integrity invites all of us to stop splitting ourselves in half, to stop saying that we're okay when we're drowning, to stop pretending to feel safe when it doesn't feel safe. And intimacy? Intimacy asks us to show up anyway, to risk being seen, even when we're trembling, and to meet our longing with honesty instead of shame. See, we're not building perfect people. We're actually building honest connections amongst us who are messy and in progress. And that means learning to stay present, even in the presence of what we always thought would hurt us. So, again, here's my invitation to you. Let yourself want what you want. Let yourself need what you need. Let yourself be touched by what feels good, even if it still makes you nervous. And then stay just one breath longer in those places where you're more familiar running. Do this not to prove anything, and not to earn love, but more so just to remember that it was never wrong to want it. Because you're not rejecting love. You're actually healing your relationship with it. And that's a worthy, beautiful human being. Let that be enough. Let that be the new beginning for you. Thank you for watching. I would love to hear how this episode touched you or impacted you. What kind of questions do you have that I could follow up on? I'll see you in the next episode.